Steve, and we got Maori. Am I saying that right? Maori. Not listening, I guess. Or you're on mute, anyways, if you are listening. Oh, and disappeared. Okay. Just you, Steve. You got all of our attention, buddy.
Nice.
I'm sure a few more people will jump in here in a minute.
I've sent a bunch of notices out as well, so I haven't heard back from anybody. They said they would attend.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. Last time we did this, everybody seemed to kind of show up a couple minutes late, so I was kind of planning on that.
Yeah, that's usually what happens.
Seems to be people clue into Panama time, even if they're not living here.
Oh, that's true. Real quick.
Oh, right back. My cat wants in.
No worries. Oh, Lowry's back.
There you are. Come here.
So it's 7 now. I don't want to get into the thick of it yet, but what I wouldn't mind doing is just kind of getting a little bit into some introductions. And if people miss that, that's fine. Maybe we'll start with Kadine up here. If you want to introduce yourself, that would be amazing. And then we'll just kind of go down the line so Steve knows the level of personal attention that you're getting right now, buddy. So definitely.
Okay. Hello, everybody. We have Mauri and Steve here. Is correct?
Correct. Yeah. So if you want to tell them a little bit about yourself so they know who's talking today.
Yes, my name is Kadine Smith. Smith is Panamanian. I'm Panamanian. My grandfather used to be expat, but I born here. And well, I'm working with Panama Property. I have 2 years working as a realtor and an attorney. So I'm here to explain you many things that you want to know about how to buy a property in Panama, legal issues, legal questions that you have. And well, I'm here with my team to support you in your process. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. And Barry, you want to tell us a little bit about, tell the group a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind?
Sure. Came to Panama back in 2022, and basically they weren't. This wasn't my first choice. Many years ago, we traveled to many countries to try and find a place to retire, and this happened to be found by accident. And I'll tell you what, we've locked in, and we ain't going nowhere. It's been a hell of a ride. We've built here. I do house inspections here. We've done all kinds of work, construction, and it's been a fantastic life, and it's one that I certainly look forward to continuing on with.
Amazing. Evelyn, are you still in the call? Or did we lose Evelyn?
Mm-hmm.
I think we lost Evelyn. She's still showing us in the call, but she's gone. Okay, I'll talk a little bit about myself here before we get into the meat and potatoes of it. Ken Norton, the owner of Panama Properties. Been here since 2021, so it's almost 6 years now that I've been here. When did I come in? 2020? 2020? 2021? I can't remember. Anyways, almost 6 years. Located down in Petitsie. The company itself now, however, Barry and Kadine are up in Boquete. We have a presence there, a strong presence in Boquete, Pedasí. Me and Evelyn handle Panama City as well, specifically focused on Casco Viejo. We also have a presence out in Bocas del Toro. We sell a lot of properties up in Coronado area as well. So basically all the popular expat stuff. Like Barry, I come from Canada. Panama is now definitely home, and don't really plan on going anywhere from Panama. And really good times, you know, becoming kind of an expert in the real estate market here, helping people. There's a lot of what I enjoy doing every day. And it's kind of fun because I get to meet lots of cool people and help them in their adventure. I always say I wish I had somebody like me and like the team when I came, because it was a lot of flailing around like a fish out of water when I first got here, and there was even less information 6 years ago. So a big part of what we try to do is as people are entering into the Panamanian market, is we really try to not just sell them real estate and problems. We try to really help everybody as they come in to understand the decisions that they're making. And I talk a lot about that when I do one-on-one calls with people, and I think the rest of the team does as well. It's more, we try to be more of advisors, and then, you know, help people come to the real estate conclusion. So that's something that's really important. Hey, Evelyn's back. Okay, Evelyn, do you want to introduce yourself just a little bit as well as our other Panamanian in the team?
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Evelyn. I'm doing the marketing part, sales advisors as well. We are in Pedasí, Coronado, and Bocas del Toro, Boquete. We have Cadine and Berry. And we not just sell houses, also we help the clients to help them to choose the best area for them, and try basically to relocate them, can I say that way? Helping them to all kind of service, house sell the houses, or if they want a land and they need help for the build, if they need help for even connect internet, car, everything. So that's what we call like a sale advisors. So we are here to answer all the questions that you have for us.
Perfect. So the format of this webinar, for the people that are in the webinar, and there'll probably be other ones that pop in as we go here, I'm thinking as well. We're going to save all the questions till the end. We're going to try and keep this thing to around 45 minutes. We got 3 topics that we're going to cover today. If you have questions that you can't remember, there's a little text box down at the bottom. Write them out, and Evelyn or Barry or whatever will take a look at the questions. But we're gonna, as we go through the topics, we're gonna save the questions till the end, and then we can spend 10, 15, even 20 minutes on questions if we need to at the end. Okay. Starting off here, Kadeen, you're on mute. Can you unmute yourself? Is it possible?
I can, yes, I did.
Cool. So as our legal representative here, as our lawyer that's in the group, I'm going to go over some of the first stuff, but Kadeen's going to back up a lot of the stuff based on her legal expertise on how things work here. And I'm going to try to do the least amount of talking and let Kadeen do more amount of talking in the first topic. And a lot of the first topic here, I'm going to do a quick screen share. So that we can kind of talk about what that first topic is going to be. You guys got the email that came through, and it kind of explains what we're going to go through here within the email. And so the first topic here, we're going to go over the difference between titled property and right of possession property, the importance of due diligence, why you should use a qualified lawyer like Kadeen, how to check for liens and restrictions, that's mainly the lawyer's job, importance of surveys, buying through corporations, foundations, things like that, and how to avoid common buyer mistakes. So I think this is really important for people that are looking to get in the Panamanian real estate market. So Kadeen, would you like to kind of bridge the topic a little bit on the main differences of titled property versus right of possession property in Panama?
Yes, look, first of all, clarify that we have two different kind of property. One is right of possession and the other one is title. If you're looking to buy something and you like some property and you find the property is not titling, let me know if you are listening to me because I think I'm cut it.
No, we can hear you. It's fine.
¿Me escuchan? Fine?
We can hear you.
Yeah? Okay.
Yep. 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 Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Well, we have, if you want to buy property, most of that doesn't mean you cannot buy it, but it's more process, more money that you're gonna spend in lawyers, in processing the government, and here in Panama, process takes long. You can be titling a property 2, 3, 4 years. Well, but that is not impossible. You can do it. But the other one is titling. And the titling is when the property is registered at the public register. Explaining first the right of possession that you say, Ken. If you want to buy a right of possession, you need, first thing that you need to know is check in the area with the judge if the property belongs to that people, to that family. Sometimes it's all the family, and this is one problem because if they are brothers, if they have sons, daughters, so they all together. And they need to have that property, own it 5 years. After 5 years using that property, living there, you have the right of possession. Then you certify this in the judge here in the area. Then you can do a contract to transfer. Have to register it. Okay, then you have the owner have to prove in a NATI that they have a certification that they own the land. Then you need to hire a surveyor, and that surveyor have to do a plan to see how many hectares they have, and that is the part, that is the legal part. That then you have to submit all that information with the contract that you have with the owner of the right of possession, the survey, and well, your passport if you are expat. But what happened? Being an expat, you have to set up a corporation. Why? Because as an expat, you cannot, or as foreign, not as an expat, as foreign, you cannot buy property on your name. You need to set up a corporation. Why? Because we have two different persons, legal persons here. One is the natural, like me and Evelyn, that we are Panamanian, and the other is the is like a legal,
Like an entity, like in the legal entity, like a
person
corporation.
that they give you is a corporation, that the government give you the same rights as me as a Panamanian. So in a legal entity, yeah. And the other person, AA, I don't know the name.
We're gonna save the questions till the end, so don't worry.
Okay, good. Then, well, this is the thing, just this is right of possession, but you see all the documentation that you need. You need to hire Ken or Evelyn to go about all this if you're gonna buy in Penasí, because they know perfect about it. Me and Barry, if we want to, well, here in Boquete, we don't have right of possession actually, not too many. That we have is a property that they didn't title in and belong to the government, to the municipio, we call. So it's in a big farm, and that they do is that you do the segregation in Boquete from the municipio. So this is different way, but it's possible to buy as well.
So could
So
you
anyway.
explain a little bit, Kadeen, on what are the negative sides of going as a foreigner, like a foreign buyer,
Foreigners,
involved in right of possession? What are some of the dangers or the negative parts of foreigners getting involved in right of possession opposed to title?
Well, the thing is, like, the right of possession, sometimes that they don't belong to the person actually, because, for example, the father died and he has this property, and then two brothers are fighting the properties. Then one brothers want to sell it, but then in the way that you are buying, then another brother appear and say, like, this is my land as well, and start fighting and legal things, and you don't want to be involved in those. So it's better to buy a titling property, and avoid this process. But if you have the person that, for example, like us, that we know if the property belongs to the person, if we check the documentation first, and we are for sure that they have all the documentation to submit this to get a title, then you can do it. But not by yourself, no talking with the people around, because sometimes, you know what happens, that in Panama, sometimes the people who has a right of possession, they don't know anything. Sometimes they don't know about legal issues, and they think because they have a survey, now they have a title. And they can confuse you, and then they show you the survey and they say, no, I have it. And you're gonna see the survey with their names, with everything, but doesn't have any stamp from ANATI, and they didn't review. Is another person trying to title in, because that happens well. Sometimes you buy a right of possession, and then when you go into ANATI, what happened? Another cousin, brother, or other person.
It can be perilous, and it's less safe to do. And I tell clients that all the time.
Yeah.
I don't want to be involved in the sales, but there's certain areas, a lot up in, for example, Bocas, a lot of the islands are right of possession because they can't be titled and a foreigner own them because of the international border. That's an example. Tennessee now doesn't have a lot of ROP land anymore, and most of it's now become titled. There's some beachfront land that's ROP, and I've had some clients buy some. I've sold them the primary homes. They're here for a year or two. Somebody offers them a deal, but guess what? Most of that beachfront stuff, once they own it as ROP land, they find out they can't build on it. And it's happened a few times with people that I personally know. So there's other pitfalls, I think, as well. Now, sorry, Barry. Did you have something to say, Barry?
Yeah, I've got a situation as well that I came across recently. There is a Calgarian and a few other expats that own a piece of property in David, and the same type of situation. Now, I don't know if it's an ROP or not, because the Calgarian that wants to sell it, she has 3 other partners or 4 other partners that have possession of that property, but I don't think have a corporation. Matter of fact, I know they don't have a corporation or a foundation. So they're struggling between each other on selling the property and setting the price, and it's been going on for years. So is this the same type of situation?
No, that's probably just they have a bunch of people that own the land, and it's they just can't agree. That's what that sounds like. So it may be titled. Let's keep moving forward a little bit, though. What are the benefits of title over ROP, Kadeen? I think that's something that we should talk about on the advantages of title over ROP.
Well, title is easier, is faster, the process. For me, for example, for us actually as a team, so we review, Evelyn sent me the number of the farm. I'm going to the public register. Actually, I don't have to go out. I just check online because I have my passport as an attorney. So I can get in and see if that property is free of every legal situations, and is who is the owner, how many hectares they have, all the history of the property. If they sell to another person, if they buy to another person, if they have a loan on the property. And depends all these issues, then we have to handle and we have to know what we need to do. For example, if it's a property titling that they have a loan from the bank, then you can buy. Is one process. If it's a titling that is free, and then the process takes like 3 or 4 months. If everybody do their job, it's 3 or 4 months. You have your property on your name.
And I should also mention that, like, as a company, where I like to think that we're different than a lot of other real estate is when we take on a listing, we do the due diligence before we list stuff. I either send it to Kadeen or even Evelyn checks or whatever. And we check to see, is the person selling the person listed on the title? This is the advantage of Panama having a titled property system and a public registry opposed to ROP land, is that there's what's called an escritura, which is the title of the property, and we can check. Is the person coming to us to sell the property the same person that's on the title? We can check in the registry, when did it sell last? Is it clean? We can check all that before we even list the property. My experience, there's a lot of other people in real estate out there that just list a property and they don't do any of the checking. They bring it there, and then they gotta clean up the mess afterwards. In fact, sometimes if we have a buyer that comes to us and they want us to represent them in buying another property out there, and we go and we find a listing and we go to buy it, we put an offer in, then we notice afterwards, maybe the seller agent hasn't done any of this due diligence before they listed the property. So now the lawyer's got to go through, okay, there's a mortgage. We didn't know there's a mortgage, or there's a lien against the property. We didn't know there's a lien because the seller or the seller agent didn't disclose this beforehand. So this is the advantage, I think, of the way that we do things. And I'm not saying everybody else does that. There's a lot of really good agencies out there. Yeah. But I dealt with quite a few deals where I've been the buyer representative. And what we found is that a lot of people aren't checking this stuff before. Ultimately, it's the buyer's lawyer's job to do the due diligence. But I think before a property gets sold, the seller agent should know these details.
I've been in this a very short time and just a couple of years. And I have to definitely agree with you, Ken. I can't believe how much of that is going on out there. I never thought it would occur here, but it's more often than not, which is really very surprising. And you say that, yes, there's that situations where there's a lot of good representatives out there. Yeah, there is. I agree. But some of the stuff I've come across, I'm shaking my head. Like, how did you?
The real estate industry here in reality is a little bit of the Wild West still. And there's not a whole lot of standardization in the way that people do stuff. So we try to be different on that. I'm not trying to sit here and toot our own horns or nothing like that, but I just want, if we're listing a property, we've checked it out before we list it. That's important.
That's right.
Okay, let's keep moving forward. We got a time that we got to try and stay in with it all. So I think we've beaten this one a little bit to death, and we can deal with questions afterwards. Within this topic, there's a little bit that I want to cover. I think it's important that if you're buying a property and it doesn't have a survey, and a lot of times now in the last 4, 5, 6 years, a lot of properties that have been traded have surveys registered in the public registry now. If it doesn't, I always encourage the buyer. It costs somewhere between $200 and $300 to have a survey done, so we know where the property lines are. We know where the staking goes. Your fence is not on your neighbor's, or your neighbor's not on yours. We know those problems. So I think, a lot of times it's on the buyer if the seller hasn't already had it, but it's very affordable in Panama to have those surveys done. A big thing I want to talk about in this webinar is I want to talk about buying properties. And Kadeen, this is going to be part of you, and I'm going to chime in a lot on this. Buying properties through corporations or foundations. And I think this is something I talk with clients a lot. A foundation, just to set the tone here, is what we call a lot in the rest of the world a trust. Okay. And in Panama, they call it a foundation. It's the same basic principle. It's a little bit different, but it's the same basic principle. So I advise a lot of my clients that are buying, if they're only going to do is hold the property in an entity, I typically push them towards forming a foundation and having the property in the foundation. And one of the reasons for that is it's cheaper to maintain the foundation year on year than it is to maintain a corporation.
And cost effective too.
Where it's more cost effective in a foundation. If you're going to buy a property and say run a business or this and that, yeah, a corporation makes more sense. But Kadeen, I'd like your opinion as well on what you as a lawyer, where do you see the advantages of a corporation for holding a property versus a foundation for holding a property?
Yes, it's because it's a different political person. Is like is like a legal entity when you can set up and buy a property with that. That Steve is asking me here about why he can handle if he want to control their corporation, and this is a thing. So you're gonna be the president, you're gonna have a board director, and you're gonna have all the control of your corporation. But this is more if you want to do a business for now, because now laws change. And for example, if you don't have a resident agent, if your resident agent quit and you have to hire another one, you pay a fine, 1,000 fine. If you don't pay the annual taxes in time, they're gonna fine you 1,000 as well. And other things that change. But foundation is like Ken said, you are gonna hold your stock. It's easier. You don't need to set up a business. You don't need to pay taxes. You just have those to cover your stock, to put your sons, your daughter, or any of your family, and your stock's gonna be safe. It's including, for example, this is important. If your son or daughter got married, their stock are safe.
So just to clarify, Steve, there, and it's
Mhm.
relative to this, so I'm going to address it. You can
Uh-huh.
hold property here in your personal name, just not right of possession property. Titled land, you can fully buy with just a passport, and you don't have to live in Panama. Okay.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, from my perspective, and I think everybody here on our team agrees, if you're talking about estate planning, and this is why I push foundations on people besides other advantages, for estate planning, foundations, and this is what Kadeen's alluding to, are the best way. Okay. I have been through 4 or 5 death cases here where owners of properties have died. I've witnessed the malarkey of the probate process here. I've witnessed the families, maybe in a couple of these cases, the people have lived in Panama a long time. So the people that died were very familiar with how Panama works, but the families were not. Maybe they visited a couple times, maybe they never visited. And for a family living in a foreign country to try and deal with the Panamanian probate process, which takes a long time, it's also very expensive. If you have your property in a foundation and you have your beneficiaries named on that foundation and you die, your beneficiaries take over the foundation and that's it.
Yep.
There's a little bit of paperwork, but it's basically they already own what you own because they're part of the foundation as beneficiaries or members or however the foundation is structured. So from estate planning, dealing with all the stuff, not putting, so at that point, all those family members then you do is call Ken or call Evelyn or call Barry or call Kane and say, I want to sell this place. I have full rights to sell. Okay, so that's the advantage of the foundation. The corporation can work similarly, and traditionally, lawyers always push people into corporations. I bought my house in a corporation. It's a lot of a pain in the ass, like Kadena said. All the negatives of a corporation don't happen in a foundation. Okay. The only real disadvantage of a corporation and a foundation versus personal ownership is transfer taxes. So if you own a property in your personal name and you go to sell, it's a 2% transfer tax and a 3% capital gain. Notice, I didn't say it's 5%. It's 2% transfer tax and 3% capital gain. If you have no capital gain, there's no 3%. If you have minimal capital gain, it's minimal capital gain taxes. In a foundation or a corporation, it is a flat 5% transfer tax. So you're paying more when you sell the property. But I think the transfer taxes the disadvantage of the transfer tax far outweighs the advantages of the estate planning, the security, the liability protection, all the other things that go along with the foundation. Okay.
And this is why we set it up with our kids. Our kids own the property if we pack it in tomorrow. So it's perfect. Everybody wins.
Okay. Moving forward, just because of time. We're going to go over a little bit here. And again, actually, before we stay on the legal stuff, we'll talk a little bit about areas in Panama, which are including, I want to talk about the popular expat areas that we're involved in, a couple other that we're not involved in, advantages, disadvantages, stuff like that. This is a huge topic, so I'm going to touch on it. And then I want to get back into a little bit of typical stuff on purchase process, legal stuff like that. Because Kadine's here today. Hey, Giselle. Because Kadine's here today, I want to deal a little bit more. She prepared for some of this legal stuff, so I think it's great. We're getting a free lawyer. And how often do lawyers work for free? So we're getting a free lawyer today, so I want to keep her in the fold. So when we talk about the different areas, and I'm going to do most of the talking here. Sorry, guys, on this one. I'm going to speed through it. And then if anybody wants follow-up more on the areas, we can do one-on-ones with any members of the team, okay? So when we talk about the different areas that are mostly popular with the expats, people always say, what's best for me? And I always say, I don't know what's best for you. I know what's best for me, but I have no idea what's best for you, okay? So a lot of what we deal with as Panama Properties, as our team, is we tell people all the time, you need to fall in love with an area first. Not fall in love with a piece of land, not fall in love with a house. I want you to fall in love with an area. I came to Pedasí. I fell in love with Pedasí. Pedasí is great for me. I knew it when I drove in the town. The day I drove in the town, this was the town for me. I knew it. Other people come to Pedasí and they hate it. It's too small for them. There's not enough going on. There's not enough shopping. All the other things I don't care. That's their choice. And I have nothing against them with that. So when you get into Pedasí, it's a small town. You get into Boquete, it's a small town, but it's a small town in the mountains, and there's a heck of a lot more in Boquete. You get into Playa Banal, there's a lot of rental income potential. There's a lot of investment. It's younger. It's a surf town, so it's a lot of guys with man buns and people that are out surfing. And there's a lot of big electronic dance music festivals. I love going there for dinner. I don't stay there till 6 o'clock in the morning, dancing to techno music. It's not my thing. But for a lot of people, it is. And that's fine. You get into Bocas del Toro. There's a lot of families moving there these days. There's international schools. Everybody goes around by boat. It's the Caribbean feel, the Caribbean music, the Caribbean people, all that type of stuff. Maybe that's for you. Maybe it's not. You get into David. It's a working city. Maybe you want to come to Panama, set up a business, do a food business. Maybe you want to do something else. You got to be somewhere where there's a robust economy. David has a very good, robust economy. Okay. Maybe you're looking for cheaper where there's not a lot of expats. Places like David, Las Tablas, you can rent a house for $400 a month. Maybe that's your budget. Okay. So it really, really, really comes down to what I always say is you need to come to Panama. You need to tour the best areas. You need to narrow it down. You need to find out what's best for you. And we can help point you in those directions, but we're not going to try and sell you homes till you know. Okay.
That's true.
Then once you've decided, hey, I really want to be in Boquete, then okay, let's start looking at homes in Boquete. But you need to make those decisions first. Okay. We can field more questions about that later on, but let's move on to the next side of it because we're starting to run a little bit short on time and I don't want to rush. We're going to try and do one of these webinars every single month so we can rehash a lot of these topics next time too. I want to go a little bit over on when you do decide the area for you, you do decide on buying a place. I want to go over a little bit on closing costs, legal fees, transfer taxes. We talked a little bit about that already. HOA fees, maintenance costs, insurance, utilities. What does it cost to buy a property and what does it cost to maintain it? That's huge things that people ask about all the time. Let's talk a little bit about legal fees. Kadeem, you're here. How much does a lawyer cost you in Panama? Do you bill by the minute like America, or are you flat rate? Stuff like that. I don't mean get in specifically on exactly what you charge, but more or less, I want you to cover how do lawyers work here on billings.
Okay, to buy a land, you think? Or
Let's
do a
take,
process of
I just came
operation?
to Panama and I want to buy a
Okay.
$100,000 piece of land. I'm going to build a home on it. I found a beautiful ocean view piece of land for $100,000. What's that going to cost me to employ you more or less to do that?
Well, actually, we just charge our fees for doing the titling, the registration, the act. If you set up a corporation, you pay $1,500, depend on the lawyer that you hire, but the minimum is that for set up a corporation. And if you want to register and do all the notary process, you can pay between $700 to $900 in all these paperwork that the notary have to do. And for the registration, then you get your certification for the public register, $45, $50. So maybe in legal you can spend between 2,500 to 3,500.
Yeah. So the point of this is it's very reasonable as a buyer to come to Panama.
Exactly.
Okay? Most lawyers, actually all lawyers, basically have flat rate billing. They usually sit around 1%-ish of the purchase price, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, but it's around usually there. And then like Kadeem said, is that the notary fees, the public registration fees are very minimal. From a buyer's point of view, that's it. That's it. You're not paying taxes coming in. You're not paying, I don't know. Somebody today was telling me about in Spain, you basically got to pay all the taxes on the transfer. That's the seller's responsibility. Okay. So yeah, $100,000 piece of property to your lawyer, you might be a couple grand, and that's not all going to your lawyer. Your lawyer is going to help you pay your public registration, your notaries, stuff like that. Your lawyer is going to charge you for it, but they don't get to keep that money. Okay. So the lawyer fees are really reasonable. Lawyers here not work like lawyers in America, where you pick up the phone and it's $300 a minute or whatever they're charging. Most lawyers here are basically, they have rates. They send you a pro forma beforehand. This is what it's going to cost you. And then there's very few surprises after that. If there's surprises after that, there's a problem. Okay. So that's something that a lot of clients, when they come to me, how much is it going to cost me to buy? I'm like, really? It doesn't cost you barely anything to buy something. Okay. Transfer taxes, property taxes. I went over a lot on property taxes in the last webinar. The webinar is on our webpage in the blog. So if you really want to get into property taxes, that's not a problem. You can do that. We also have on the top of the webpage where it says, what does the top of the webpage say? What's the title? On the top of our webpage, there's a thing that says Panama Info Guide, and there's an entire webpage within the Panama Info Guide on property taxes. So I'm not going to get severely into that one today. Okay, guys? We beat it to death for a big topic. Maintenance costs. This is a big question that comes up, and I want to touch on it today. Maintenance costs. One of the big questions is, what's my water cost? What's my garbage cost? What's my electricity cost? Things like that. Barry, you're going to talk on this one, buddy.
Okay, so simply, if you look at utilities, we go to Boquete, go to the municipal office, and we have two water sources here at our property. One being local, which is the Boquete Canyon Village. There's a reservoir there, and we draw from that supposedly. And the other one is municipal. We also have a garbage pickup, and that's twice a week. So garbage pickup and water, for example, runs us $180 per year. That's it. You look at Electricity, that's another thing. Again, that's being charged by Naturgy. So we did a bit of an analysis here recently, about a month and a half ago, with a local electrician, and we measured the electricity used in all the AC units, all the fans, all that stuff, because we were paying upwards of $362 per month, which was insane. We thought, what are we doing wrong? I thought it was the pool that was using the pool pump using all this power. We did an analysis on that. We found out that we ran AC everywhere in every flipping room, and there was no reason for it. If we gauged the amount of AC used and the fans, it was either fans or AC. I'll tell you what, I think we're going to drop down to about 160 per month. And that's here in this community. If you go into other communities, into other not gated communities, but other areas within the Boquete area, Palo Alto or Vulcan, you're going to find rates, and we've heard them as low as $20 a month. So it all depends on where you live and how much power you're actually consuming, which makes a huge difference. So it's how you want to live is what's going to make the difference on your power costs.
So yeah, and I'll touch on Tennessee right now. Garbage went up to $18 a year last year, and everybody freaked out. The locals freaked out because it went from 15 to 18, and there was almost a tax revolt. Water in the area is, I think, $8.50 a month for public water. If you're on a well, there's no cost. Electricity, I think that's most people's biggest cost. I switched 2 years ago. My electricity bills were running around $200 a month. I switched all my air conditioners. They were old. They were 14, 15 years old in my house. I switched them all over to inverters. And I had an electric water heater, and I switched that over to propane, which is, by the way, subsidized in Panama. And my electricity bills went down to $79 a month. Now, I don't AC when I'm not home. If I leave for the week, I lock everything up and I turn on the ACs in 2 or 3 rooms. But during the week when I'm here working, all that stuff, I don't have ACs on. But if I'm sleeping, the AC is on every night. We sleep at about 25 degrees Celsius. If I'm in the living room watching TV, the AC's on. And right now I'm in my home office and my AC's on 24 degrees. So we're not afraid to use them, but we don't. And this is probably where you were messing up, Barry. You're running 3 or 4 ACs in your house 24 hours a day.
Yeah, that was
I
wrong.
always say when foreigners come here and they run every AC, they have their house closed up all the time, and they're running them 24/7. Yep, $300 to $400 is about the bill.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is this: Naturgy has a 2-tier billing system. So there's one power company in the country, which is Naturgy. They suck. Everybody hates them. But we're not going to fix that. I'm not going to fix that. Somebody might, but I'm not going to. You pay a certain amount. I can't remember the exact bill in kilowatts, but it's somewhere between 5 and 7 cents a kilowatt hour, up to a point. When you crest, I think it's a 600 kilowatt, but don't quote me on anything I'm saying here. Or let's just say I'm pulling numbers out of the air. You cross a certain kilowatt usage, and that goes up to 15 or 17 or something cents a kilowatt hour. But they don't just bill above the threshold, they retroact your entire bill from zero. So if you cross that threshold, you're now paying more than double for your entire bill. So the heavier user you are, you get penalized for it. So there's a lot of Panamanians that are running a couple fans, maybe a refrigerator in their house, maybe they don't have AC. They're paying $15, $20 a month. That's your average Panamanian bill. Okay. Your foreigner that comes that wants to keep their house completely sealed up all the time, yep, $300, $400 can happen with a pool. So you're kind of you hit the gentrification stereotype there, Barry, on what you guys were doing, but you've got to figure it out. Okay.
One other question that gets posed periodically as well is what sewer cost is. And sewers are basically all septic systems, the field septic systems. It's all free property. So you're not really paying sewer unless you're right in town. And I don't think there's even a charge for that.
If you're in town, your sewer and your water is that $8.50.
Yeah.
Or whatever. There's different areas that have different bills, but your water and your sewer combined if you're in town. Is there anything? HOA fees, it depends. It really, really depends on what community you're in, if there's an HOA. Okay, so quite often though, they're not too bad. I think Barry, what are you guys paying where you are?
We're paying $120 per house.
Okay.
And then
Per
if
lot.
it's
Per lot, yeah.
no, it's house. If
Oh,
it's a
per house.
lot, it's only $60. And our
Okay.
garage is considered a lot because nobody resides in it. So that's $60 a month.
So it depends. Typically, in a lot of these gated communities, it sits between what Barry has and $200 a month.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's rare to get above that. You get into some really high-end communities with golf included, stuff like that. You can be $300-400. But that's, I mean, if you got a golf course and you pay $300-400, that's not so bad. So usually it's not too bad that way. Okay. On other costs, insurance. That's another one that comes up all the time. All I can do on insurance is give the example of what I pay. I got my house insured for $350,000. It's insured up the wahoo for everything, and I pay $600 a year. Okay, that's fire, theft, damage, acts of God, floods, everything is in my insurance policy, and I pay $600 a year. So I think that that's extremely reasonable. It's case by case. And insurance here is notorious for not paying out well. So I always say get more. And then when they pay you half, you're not doing too bad. And that's always my advice on insurance. I got a really good insurance broker I give everybody. He's a broker, and that's rare to find it. So if you buy through us, that's another part of a thing is that you get those resources. We're giving you insurance brokers. We're giving you bank contacts. Giselle that joined in here, she's actually my mortgage broker that I send everybody to. So we'll let her do a little intro when we're done here as well, because I think she's an important resource that has come in line working with our team in the last 6 or 8 months. We've been working together, and she is awesome. So we'll let her talk a little bit if she feels like it. Other than that, on other expenses, I think we're into 7:45. So let's open the floor to see if there's any other questions. Maori, I don't know if I'm saying it right. Maori has posed a couple here in writing. Hello, everybody. Having problems with the Meet microphone video. Can you please clarify again the negatives of owning a condo individually rather than through a foundation corporation? Can I draft a legal beneficiary letter for my son to inherit and avoid probate? I'm going to field that one over to. Can you see the chat, Kenny? Can you open the chat? Bottom right corner, it's like a little squiggly box.
Yeah, actually, I just sent Evelyn the differences about a corporation and foundation. I don't know if you can write it there or you can send
What
it
she's
to
talking about a lot though is inheritance, and
Okay.
basically, I'll give my 2 cents, and then Kenny, if you can follow up on it. Basically, the answer is no. Okay, you can have a written will, you can have a Panamanian will, or you can have a will from your own country. You're still going to go through probate, from my understanding. Okay, the only way to avoid the probate, and even if your son is on the title of your property, you own it in your personal name, and your son is on the title, your son still has to go through the process of getting you off the title because of your death, which is a probate process. Edine, I'm going to let you run with that.
Yes. Well, exactly. So you have here in Panama, you have to do a probate process that takes like 1 or 2 years, and is through the judge. So you have to hire an attorney and provide all the stocks who goes to your relative. But like Ken said, it's better to have a will.
But
Much
even with
better.
a will, there's still a probate process.
Yeah,
correct?
but it's easier. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's easier because you're going through a judge, but you open the will, they read it, and then just going through, and the process is faster.
Right.
If I
Yeah,
can
but
jump in, just
Go
If you
ahead.
don't have it, then that takes 1 or 2 years, and is most cost.
With a will, what are we looking at? 3 months, 6 months, a year? What's the average if there's a Panamanian will?
I don't understand the
The
question.
average time, if let's say Maori had a Panamanian will and she died and she named her son as inheritance and there's a will, what type of timeline are we looking at for that probate process with the will to take place? Roughly.
Oh, 6 months.
6 months still. Okay.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
just in further,
Go ahead.
sorry, just in furtherance to that, we had a will in Canada, And when we brought it to our attorney here, he said, that's fine, but it doesn't hold water here. So we got a foundation for our property, and he also recommended a will on top of that,
Yes.
which we did. So we're covered from one end to the other.
Yes, it's true.
Go ahead.
Okay, the other question that Mallory had was also about water shortages in the Azuro Peninsula. Okay, the Azuro Peninsula is the driest area of Panama. In this area of Panama, we basically have 6 months of rain and 6 months of no rain. Okay, so obviously during those 6 months of no rain, which goes from about the end of Christmas till about the end of May, it does get drier here. Okay. Tennessee is notorious for having water problems. Tennessee, I always tell everybody, does not have a lack of water. Tennessee has a lack of infrastructure. Like we were talking about before, with Naturgy being the only utility for electricity, Panama also has a unilateral water utility that's national. Water is not managed by the municipalities. It's managed by a national utility called EDAN. Nobody likes EDAN either, okay? EDAN, unfortunately, is also very underfunded, especially in the interior. So I always say Panama kind of exists as two countries, Panama City and the rest of us. And the rest of us we call the interior. So I live in town. And 2 years ago, I went 5 weeks without water, and it was mainly because of problems with EDAN. This year, I went 1 day without water. I have a very large water reserve tank, which is the standard in Panama. Mine is 600 gallons, which is 1,100 liters. And I actually want to put in a second one about that size, which will give me 4 or 5 days of water. Okay, what happens a lot of times is the town has no water during the day, and then the water comes back on at night, your tank fills, and then you got 3 or 4 days of water. This is a town problem typically. Most people that live outside of town have wells. If you hit the aquifer fine, we have a very large network of underground rivers, not lakes, but underground rivers that are very robust and full of water. So there is no water shortages. What there is an infrastructure problem. Why? Because Panama is still a developing country. Okay. Boquete doesn't have these problems. Why? Because it's in the mountains and it rains basically 10 months a year up there. So they don't have those issues. So it really depends on where you are. The Azuro Peninsula does have more issues, but it's not a lack of water. It's a lack of infrastructure. So no problems. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to allow everybody to turn their microphones on. So if anybody has any verbal questions, you're welcome to pose those. Just try and keep everything basically one at a time if you don't mind. Okay.
Put your hand up.
Yeah. So everybody, if you want to, you can unmute yourself. Does anybody have any verbal questions that they would like to ask? There's Giselle. No, nobody? Okay, that's cool. I guess we covered everything. Cool. That being said, Giselle, would you like to introduce yourself? Because you jumped into the call, and you can have a shameless plug for your business here if you'd like.
Thank you, Ken. Well, yeah, thank you for also sending the link. As Ken, I think what great presentation, as he was mentioning. I agree with him. First, you have to fall in love with a place. That's what we like to tell our clients as well. Once you fall in love with the place, then we can help you, track and design the whole strategy to get financing, which is basically what we do. As mortgage broker, we have relationships with all of the banks in Panama. And, in a lot of cases coming from different countries, from the US, from Europe, from Canada, the way in which financing works a little bit different. debt to income ratio is accounted differently, sources of income as well. And basically where we jump in with Ken is, making sure that clients have a strategy in place and have the right budget. We focus a lot on doing that pre-qualification and building up credit history so that if you need upending financing, you have that option open. There's a lot of things that we do. We also assist creating bank accounts, whether if it's for personal usage, corporations, so anything that's related to banking, so you can start building that financial footprint in Panama. But yeah, basically that. I don't know if anyone
About
has
my
questions
last
here.
7 or 8 clients that have needed open banks, they haven't been in Panama. I've sent them over to Gazelle, and she's been able to actually help people open bank accounts from outside the country, which is very difficult
That's
to do
rare.
previously. And this girl right here is a magician when it comes to stuff like this. Okay, she's a magician. So,
Oh my gosh, you're flattering.
no, really. So, and then the other thing is opposed to, and just to touch on the mortgage thing, and maybe the next webinar will actually bring you in and we'll talk a little bit more about it.
Good idea.
But what I really like is that, like, I just went through a mortgage process. We tried to do it ourselves a little bit. The banks just basically stonewall us. I went over to Gazelle. She went and she basically contacts every bank. But besides that, what she does, and I've had a lot of clients go over to her, is she takes and analyzes everybody's stuff and then kind of pre-qualifies, which is also something, it seems so normal to do, but in Panama, this is not a thing. And so she can look at the problems, figure out the problems, advise on what to be fixed, and then go on from there. So here's the girl right here that can actually get people financed as foreigners in Panama, because 6-8 months ago, the answer to this question was no. People come to me and say, can I get a mortgage? And I'd say, no. And now I can say, it's not easy. There's a lot of hoops to jump through, but I got a girl. And that's the girl right there. Okay. So
Yeah, that's hard. It's doable. It's doable.
Doable. No, but that's what I'm saying.
It's
So now
doable.
it's doable. There's possibilities. There's a lot more hoops than back home. But there's the girl that basically makes the hoops, crafts the hoops, lights the hoops on fire, and then helps you jump through the hoops. So that's the cool part. Okay. So I think the next webinar, we're going to do a whole thing on possibilities, the criteria, all that stuff on finance.
Let's do
So
it.
Probably we'll be into like July-ish when we'll get into that webinar. Okay. So for sure. Before we jump off, we're about 11 minutes over time for where I wanted to be, and that's not too bad for our little group that likes to talk. Does anybody have anything else that they'd like to pose? Any questions they'd like to shoot our way before we close this one down? Nothing. Going once, going twice.
I
Everybody
do have a small
clear?
comment. I have a small comment.
Go ahead.
And this might be more for the lawyer in the call, but I did have a family member at some point that I remember that they did something called an usufructo, which is kind of a figure that can allow if to avoid like the whole, not to avoid, but you can live in the property. I think that's how it worked, but the owner can be someone else. So that's a way in which you can avoid like doing a will. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I think that it might be like interesting looking into that option for anyone that maybe has a son or a daughter and they want to make sure that the property goes to them. So just a comment there, an idea
There's
out
always
there.
a solution in Panama, which is the cool thing. The
Yeah.
biggest
Thank
part, I think, when it comes to that subject is there's a lot of people that move here, for example, retire, and their family is not here, and that's where it gets complicated when it gets into the probate and the death cases and stuff like that. And those are every death case I've been involved with. Somebody died here, and the family had nothing really to do with Panama, and that's where it can get complicated. And I've seen lawyers, unscrupulous lawyers, do unscrupulous stuff in those cases as well. So
It's great that you mention it, because this is true. Is usufructo is an like an idea that you have your son. If you have, for example, people when they use a property for like a farm, so they have coffee or stuff, then they transfer that property to their sons. But we don't use that in foreign people because that Ken said. But it's a great that you mention it. because it's good that you know everything, you know. In case you hear what is that, then you know.
Then you
You
know
have
what it
some-
is.
Exactly. Very
Okay,
smart.
everybody.
I
Thank you for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go eat dinner now, so I don't care about anybody else at this point because I'm hungry. And I think this was a really good one. It was a good little small group of people with some really good comments, and we got through everything. So we'll send out emails. We'll do this. This webinar it was recorded, so there'll be a link sent out if anybody wants to watch it and review it again. And it was great meeting everybody. It was great to have everybody's questions, and I'm glad that we got to show up and help and advise and educate. That's the best part of our jobs. All right, so good night, everybody, and we'll see you in about a
Good
month.
night.
Okay, bye bye, ciao ciao.
Bye.
Bye.